Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Afterburner. I'm Bill Whittle. President Obama announced recently that since the Congress will not rubber stamp his job bill, he's going to use executive order to get around that pesky Constitution that he famously said in a radio interview was fundamentally flawed because it limits the power of people like him to do what they think is right. Now, just about everyone professes to love the U.S. Constitution, but conservatives and progressives see it in fundamentally different ways. It seems to me that progressives look at it as kind of like that famous painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. It's part of our Revolutionary War history, suitable for framing, let's say, and useful for quoting and defending when it suits them, and being derided as outdated and the racist product of dead white males when it doesn't. Conservatives look at the Constitution as the law. In the conservative view, progressives try to get around the law through two main doors in the language of the Constitution, the General Welfare Clause and the Commerce Clause. The General Welfare Clause makes an appearance in the preamble to the Constitution, and it also appears in the enumerated powers, good old Article 1, Section 8, which reads that the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts, and to provide for the common defense and the general welfare of the United States. Now, the progressives use this as they use everything else. It's a blank check to do whatever they want. Medicare, general welfare. $500 million for a bankrupt solar power company, let's say, that's general welfare. Student loans, general welfare. Big screen plasma TVs for one-legged Sri Lankan ophthalmologist coming to America, general welfare. You know, I've yet to hear progressives mention anything that the General Welfare Clause does not allow, which means that if this clause means what they think it means, government power is unlimited, and every single other word in the entire document, every single word, thought, and phrase that doesn't start with general and end in welfare is utterly and completely meaningless. It's like the Constitution says casually enough, "Hi, I'm your Constitution, come on in and have a seat." And then some legislator says, see, it says have a seat, which authorizes Congress to buy 200 million chairs of various sizes and colors, also ottomans, couches, hammocks, stools, benches, pews, and ledges. And since it's absurd to have all of these things out in the snow, the Take a Seat clause also obviously authorizes us to build huts, tents, lean-tos, houses, cabins, hotels, mansions, and skyscrapers to put them in. And also, it clearly authorizes us to spend trillions on the roads, railways, canals, seaports, navigational aids, electrical grid, sewer system, and the police and fire forces necessary so that you can have a seat. See, it's all right there in the Have a Seat clause. When the Constitution says the general welfare, what it really means is the general welfare. Only that which benefits us all equally. National defense is mentioned because it benefits all of us generally, not some of us specifically. Tax money for interstate highways, that's the general welfare. Taking money from some people and not others, and using that money to benefit some people and not others, that's not the general welfare. That's the kind of vote-buying power grab the Constitution was set up to prevent. Now, take the Commerce Clause. Obamacare says that the federal government has the power at gunpoint, if necessary, to make you buy something you may not want, may not need, and may not be able to afford. Where on earth do these charlatans think they get that kind of power over our lives? Well, through the Commerce Clause, obviously, and that works perfectly well for them until, you actually read the Commerce Clause, which says that Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. So, are you a foreign nation? What about a state? Are you a state? Maybe you're an Indian tribe, perhaps. Because if you're not one of those three things, then Congress has no power over your commerce whatsoever. None. So, how did they get that power? Well, let's say that the Constitution makes a simple, obvious, declarative sentence like water flows downhill. 100 years go by, and the Supreme Court looks at it and says, well, yes, obviously water does flow downhill, but due to eddies and the quantum motion of subatomic particles, it's probably better to say that water flows downhill except in certain very limited circumstances. 50 years go by, and they review it again and say water mostly flows downhill. 20 years later, the new ruling is water flows both uphill and downhill. Then 10 years later, they say the Uphill Water Act of 1965 is constitutional, since the Constitution's been clearly interpreted to say that water flows uphill. And when you confront them with the fact that a sentence is interpreted to mean the exact opposite of what it actually says, they cite judicial precedent. My friends, the Constitution is an instruction manual, that's all it is. It tells us how to build the federal government. Its entire purpose is to decide what power goes where, and it only deals with three players, the three parties that will share that power. And those parties are the federal government, referred to in the Constitution as the United States, and then the states themselves, and finally, the people. The Constitution says things like members chosen every second year by the people of the several states and the electors in that state, or we the people, or the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Again and again and again, these three same players, the federal government, the states, and the people. If the Constitution had the authority to make you buy Obamacare, it would have said Congress shall have the power to regulate, tax, and enforce commerce among the people. But it doesn't say that at all. Now, progressives will say, Bill, you fiendishly good-looking, well-dressed, articulate, debonair, well-educated patriot with whom we respectfully disagree. You're wrong. The Supreme Court has ruled that the Commerce Clause lets Congress regulate commerce among the people, to which I reply, I don't care. We, the people, have a contract with our government. It's called the Social Compact. It basically says we agree to be taxed and we agree to obey the law so long as the government agrees to follow the rules outlined in the Constitution. That's the deal. We, the people, have that agreement. Not we, the Supreme Court justices, not we, the Harvard Law Review editors, not we, the publishers of the New York Times. We, the people. When our Congress and our president of whatever party ignore those laws, whenever 5 unelected Supreme Court justices tell me that a plain English sentence means the opposite of what it actually says, then the social compact is broken. If my government does not live up to its end of our contract, I have no obligation to live up to mine. The social compact is broken. So what do we do about it? Do we choose lawlessness or do we choose a return to the law? Because we have to choose, and we have to choose wisely, and we have to choose quickly.